Ladies and gentlemen, friends and fellow dreamers, I stand before you today to talk about something that is often overlooked but incredibly important in our journey towards self-love, respect, and growth: setting boundaries. Setting boundaries is not a sign of weakness, it is an act of strength. It is about knowing your worth, understanding your limits, and respecting your own needs. Boundaries are the invisible lines that protect your energy, your peace, and your soul. And it's so crucial to understand that setting them is not just for others, it's for yourself. Imagine this: you're constantly giving your time, your attention, your love, and yet you feel empty, exhausted, and unappreciated. This happens when you fail to set boundaries. People will take and take until there's nothing left of you. But here's the thing: we are not meant to be endless sources of sacrifice. We are meant to thrive, to nourish ourselves, and to stand tall in our own strength. We often fear that setting boundaries will make us seem selfish, but let me tell you, this self-care is not selfish. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot be the best version of yourself for others if you're not honoring yourself first. You cannot give what you do not have. And setting boundaries is the first step in replenishing that cup. Boundaries are an expression of self-respect. They are a reminder that you are worthy of peace, dignity, and balance. They are a declaration that your emotional, mental, and physical well-being matters. It's not about pushing people away, it's about inviting people into your life who respect your needs and your space. Setting boundaries is also about saying no without guilt. Society teaches us to be people pleasers, to always say yes, to be everything for everyone. But let's be honest, being everything for everyone makes you nothing to yourself. The power of no is life-changing. It's an affirmation of what you value, of what matters to you. And guess what? When you set boundaries, you teach others how to treat you. You teach them how to respect your time, your energy, and your dreams. It's not always easy. There may be discomfort, there may be resistance, but that's okay. True growth always comes with discomfort. Remember, you are not responsible for how others react to your boundaries. You are responsible for maintaining your own peace. There are going to be times when you feel pulled in multiple directions, when you feel the weight of the world pressing down on you. But you don't have to carry it all. Setting boundaries is like building your own fortress, one that keeps you safe, protects your peace, and allows you to stand strong in your own truth. So I challenge you today to reflect on your life, on the people and situations that drain you. Identify where you need to establish boundaries, and don't be afraid to put them in place. It's not about being rigid or cold, it's about being compassionate with yourself. It's about preserving your energy for the things and people that truly matter. You deserve to feel safe, heard, and respected. You deserve the space to grow, to breathe, to simply be, and the power to do that is in your hands, in your ability to say no when needed, and to say yes to what nourishes your soul. Remember, you are not just a person to be admired or pitied, you are someone to be respected. And the boundaries you set are a reflection of the respect you have for yourself. So let's stand tall. Let's build those boundaries. Because when we honor ourselves, we inspire others to do the same. Self-care is often misunderstood. In a world that frequently rewards self-sacrifice and the endless pursuit of productivity, the concept of self-care is sometimes seen as a luxury, or worse, as selfish. We are taught, sometimes from a young age, that our worth is measured by how much we give to others, how much we can handle, and how many needs we can meet. The narrative of being a selfless person often comes with the idea that putting your own needs first is somehow wrong. But I want to challenge that notion. Self-care is not selfish. In fact, it is one of the most essential things you can do for yourself and, by extension, for those around you. Self-care is a practice of understanding your own needs, honoring your limits, and creating a space for your mind, body, and spirit to heal, grow, and thrive. It's about filling your own cup before you try to fill others, because you cannot pour from an empty cup. In many ways, self-care is the foundation of living a healthy, fulfilled life. When we neglect our own well-being, we risk losing touch with who we are and what we truly need, leading to exhaustion, burnout, and sometimes even resentment toward others. But when we make self-care a priority, we become better versions of ourselves, more compassionate, patient, and present for the people we care about. The first thing we need to understand is that self-care is not just about indulging in luxuries or pampering ourselves once in a while. It's not only about taking a bubble bath, getting a massage, or spending a weekend away, though those things can be part of it. Self-care is much deeper than these external actions. It's about consistently checking in with ourselves and honoring our emotional, mental, and physical needs. It involves making choices every single day that contribute to our well-being, and sometimes those choices may not feel as glamorous or indulgent as a spa day. Sometimes self-care looks like setting boundaries, saying no to things that drain you, or taking time to rest and recharge instead of pushing yourself to keep going. Self-care requires us to be honest with ourselves about our limitations. As humans, we have a tendency to want to do it all, be it at work, in relationships, or in our personal lives. But doing everything at once can lead to stress and overwhelm. The reality is, we cannot always give 100% to every area of our lives, and that's okay. When we recognize that we have limits, we can begin to make decisions based on our capacity in that moment. This might mean prioritizing rest over work, asking for help when needed, or even stepping away from commitments that no longer serve us. The key here is to be kind to yourself in the process, to recognize that you deserve rest, space, and time to nurture yourself just as much as anyone else does. One of the most important aspects of self-care is the ability to set healthy boundaries. Boundaries are often viewed as a way of keeping people or things at a distance, but in reality, they are an act of self-respect. Setting boundaries is a way of protecting your time, energy, and emotional well-being. Without boundaries, we risk being pulled in too many directions, leaving us feeling drained and depleted. But when we set clear boundaries, we create space for ourselves to focus on what truly matters to us. Setting boundaries also helps us communicate to others what we need and expect from our relationships. Boundaries can be as simple as saying no when you need to, being honest about what you can or cannot do, or taking time for yourself when you need to recharge. Self-care also involves being intentional about how we spend our time and who we spend it with. It's important to surround ourselves with people who uplift us, encourage us, and respect our boundaries. Sometimes we may find ourselves in relationships or environments that drain our energy, leaving us feeling exhausted or unappreciated. In these cases, self-care might involve creating distance from people or situations that are not conducive to our well-being. This doesn't mean we have to cut people out of our lives entirely, but it might mean reevaluating the nature of our interactions and adjusting accordingly. Just as we wouldn't allow someone to disrespect us physically, we must not allow anyone to disrespect our mental and emotional well-being. Self-care involves protecting your peace by surrounding yourself with people who bring positivity, understanding, and support into your life. Another aspect of self-care is learning how to manage stress effectively. We live in a fast-paced world where stress is often inevitable, but how we respond to stress is within our control. Self-care teaches us to manage stress in ways that are healthy and sustainable. This could mean practicing mindfulness, meditation, deep breathing exercises, or engaging in activities that bring us joy and relaxation. It could also mean learning to let go of things that are beyond our control. Often we find ourselves worrying about things that haven't happened yet or stressing over things that we cannot change. By practicing mindfulness and focusing on the present moment, we can let go of unnecessary stress and create space for peace and clarity. Physical self-care is just as important as mental and emotional self-care. Taking care of our bodies is an essential part of maintaining overall well-being. This means getting enough sleep, eating nourishing foods, staying active, and listening to our bodies when they tell us we need rest or movement. Physical self-care is not just about looking good on the outside, it's about honoring your body and giving it what it needs to function at its best. When we neglect our physical health, it becomes harder to cope with stress, emotional challenges, and daily demands. Taking care of your body is one of the most fundamental ways to practice self-care. Self-care also involves cultivating a positive mindset. Our thoughts and beliefs shape how we experience the world around us. If we constantly engage in negative self-talk or focus on what we lack, it becomes difficult to feel good about ourselves and our lives. Self-care includes taking the time to reflect on our thoughts and replace negative patterns with affirmations of self-worth, gratitude, and positivity. It's about reframing our mindset and being kinder to ourselves, especially when things don't go as planned. It's easy to be critical of ourselves when we make mistakes or face challenges, but self-care teaches us to treat ourselves with the same compassion and understanding we would offer to a friend in need. One of the most transformative aspects of self-care is the ability to forgive ourselves. We all make mistakes, we all fall short at times, but self-care requires us to let go of shame and guilt and to practice self-compassion. Forgiving ourselves means acknowledging our imperfections and giving ourselves permission to grow and learn from our experiences. It's about recognizing that we are human, and being human means making mistakes. By practicing self-forgiveness, we free ourselves from the burden of guilt and open ourselves up to healing and growth. Self-care is also about cultivating joy in our lives. It's easy to get caught up in the demands of everyday life and forget to make space for the things that bring us joy. But joy is a vital part of our well-being. Whether it's through hobbies, creativity, laughter, or spending time with loved ones, self-care encourages us to seek out and nurture the things that bring us happiness. Joy is not just a fleeting emotion, it's an essential component of a balanced life. When we make time for joy, we replenish our energy and return to our responsibilities with a renewed sense of purpose and positivity. In a world that constantly tells us to do more, achieve more, and give more, self-care is a radical act of self-preservation. It is a powerful reminder that you are worthy of love, care, and attention, just as much as anyone else. When you make self-care a priority, you are not only improving your own life, but you are also better equipped to help others and make a positive impact in the world. Self-care is not a one-time event, it is a lifelong practice. It is a journey of listening to yourself, honoring your needs, and creating the space to thrive. Boundaries are essential for maintaining a healthy sense of self, preserving our emotional well-being, and ensuring that we are able to navigate relationships and life with clarity and purpose. Without boundaries, we risk allowing external pressures, other people's needs, and societal expectations to overwhelm us, draining our energy and leaving us feeling depleted. When we set boundaries, we are taking responsibility for our emotional, physical, and mental health. It is an expression of self-respect that allows us to cultivate environments in which we can thrive. At its core, setting boundaries is about knowing where your limits are, understanding what you need to feel balanced, and communicating those needs effectively. Boundaries are not just about protecting ourselves from others, but about creating space where we can maintain our sense of identity and autonomy. Whether in our personal relationships, at work, or in social settings, boundaries help us establish the framework for how we engage with the world around us. They are essential for preserving our peace, managing stress, and maintaining our sense of well-being. One of the most important aspects of setting boundaries is recognizing that they are necessary for healthy relationships. Too often, we fall into the trap of people-pleasing, where we say yes to everything in an effort to avoid conflict or to make others happy. This can lead to feelings of resentment and burnout. When we fail to establish boundaries, we inadvertently communicate that our needs and well-being are secondary to others. But healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, and that respect includes honoring each other's boundaries. By setting clear limits, we allow ourselves to engage with others in a way that is both fulfilling and sustainable. Boundaries are not about creating walls or shutting people out. Instead, they are about creating clear guidelines for how we interact with others. They help us define where we end and others begin, which is essential for maintaining a sense of individuality. For example, setting a boundary might look like letting someone know that you are unavailable for a certain period of time so that you can rest or focus on something important to you. It might mean communicating that certain behaviors or words are not acceptable, or that you need to take a step back from a situation to recharge. Boundaries communicate our values, priorities, and limits in a way that allows us to maintain our integrity while still being present for others. It is also crucial to understand that setting boundaries is an ongoing process. Life constantly changes, and so do our needs and limits. As we grow, our boundaries may shift, and that's okay. In fact, it's important to reevaluate our boundaries regularly to ensure that they are still aligned with our values and needs. This means checking in with ourselves, being honest about what is working and what isn't, and adjusting accordingly. Sometimes we may realize that we've let certain boundaries slip, or that we need to be firmer in enforcing them. Other times we might find that we need to loosen up and be more flexible. This adaptability is a natural part of the boundary setting process, and it helps us navigate life with resilience and self-awareness. Setting boundaries is also often challenging because it requires us to be assertive. We may fear rejection or disappointing others when we communicate our needs. However, it's essential to recognize that setting boundaries is not about being harsh or rigid. It's about expressing our needs with kindness and clarity. We don't have to apologize for our boundaries or justify them to others. Boundaries are not negotiable, they are a reflection of our personal limits, and we have the right to protect our emotional and mental space. The people who respect us will understand and honor those boundaries, and those who don't may need to reconsider how they engage with us. One of the reasons that people struggle with setting boundaries is because they often associate boundaries with conflict. The idea of confronting someone or saying no can be intimidating, particularly if we are not accustomed to standing up for ourselves. But in reality, setting boundaries can actually reduce conflict in the long run. When we communicate our needs clearly, we are less likely to feel resentful or frustrated, which means that we can avoid the buildup of negative emotions that can lead to bigger issues later on. By being honest about what we need and expect, we create a space where everyone involved can understand each other's limits and work together more harmoniously. Another aspect of boundaries is that they are essential for managing our time and energy. Without boundaries, we may find ourselves overcommitted, overwhelmed, and stretched too thin. We may feel compelled to say yes to every request, attend every event, or take on every responsibility, even when we know we don't have the capacity. But by setting boundaries, we can take control of our time and prioritize the things that truly matter to us. This might mean saying no to certain obligations in order to focus on our health, our family, or our personal goals. It might mean turning down opportunities that don't align with our values or interests. When we set clear boundaries around our time, we are able to create space for rest, relaxation, and the activities that bring us joy and fulfillment. Setting boundaries also involves knowing when to walk away from situations or relationships that no longer serve us. Sometimes we find ourselves in toxic environments or unhealthy relationships where our needs are not being met or where we are being taken advantage of. In these situations, setting boundaries may mean distancing ourselves from individuals or situations that are draining our energy or harming our well-being. Walking away is not always easy, especially if we have invested time and energy into a relationship or situation. But it is essential to recognize that our well-being comes first, and that we have the right to remove ourselves from any circumstance that undermines our peace. Setting boundaries is an act of self-love and self-preservation. It is a way of protecting our emotional and mental health, ensuring that we are able to show up as the best version of ourselves for others and for ourselves. When we set boundaries, we teach others how to respect us and how to treat us with the same care and consideration that we give to them. We also send a message to ourselves that we are worthy of respect and that our needs and well-being matter. Setting boundaries is an ongoing practice of self-awareness, self-respect, and self-care. It requires us to be clear about what we need, to communicate those needs with confidence, and to maintain the courage to uphold our boundaries even when it is difficult. By doing so, we create a foundation for healthier relationships, greater peace of mind, and a life that is aligned with our values and priorities. Saying no is one of the most powerful acts of self-respect you can practice. It is a simple yet profound word, often met with resistance, discomfort, and sometimes even guilt. We are conditioned to believe that saying no to others is selfish, that it makes us bad people or unkind friends, colleagues, or family members. We fear the disapproval or disappointment that might follow, and as a result, we often find ourselves saying yes to things that we don't want to do, don't have the time for, or simply don't feel aligned with. But here's the truth: saying no is not only necessary for your well-being, it's also an essential tool for maintaining healthy boundaries and ensuring that you are living a life that reflects your values, priorities, and needs. When we say yes to everything, we are not leaving room for the things that truly matter to us. Our time and energy become depleted, leaving us feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, and stretched thin. We start to lose sight of our own goals, passions, and desires because we are constantly trying to meet the demands of everyone around us. This is where the power of no comes in. It allows us to reclaim our time and protect our energy. When we say no, we create space for what is truly important, for the things and people that nourish our soul and help us grow. Saying no is not just about rejecting external requests, it is also about honoring your internal needs. We all have limits, and it is essential that we recognize and respect them. Our emotional, mental, and physical capacity to give and receive is not infinite. Just as we need sleep, rest, and nourishment to function at our best, we also need to protect our time and energy in order to be able to show up for the things that truly matter. Saying no is an act of self-care because it is a way of acknowledging that you deserve space to breathe, to rest, and to prioritize your own well-being. One of the most difficult aspects of saying no is the fear of disappointing others. We live in a society that often places high value on being agreeable, accommodating, and helpful. From a young age, we are taught to be kind and to please others, sometimes at the expense of our own needs. This can lead to a constant cycle of saying yes to please others, even when it goes against our own best interests. But it is crucial to understand that saying no does not mean you are rejecting the person or the relationship. In fact, saying no can strengthen relationships by ensuring that your interactions are rooted in mutual respect. When you say no, you are setting a clear boundary that communicates your needs and reinforces your value. You are letting others know that your time, energy, and resources are limited and that you must prioritize yourself in order to be able to fully show up for the things that matter. There is a misconception that saying no makes you a bad person, a selfish person, or someone who is not reliable or trustworthy. But in reality, saying no is a form of self-respect and a form of respect for others as well. When you say yes to things you don't want to do, you are not being true to yourself, and this can lead to feelings of resentment and frustration. Over time, this resentment can build up, and it can negatively affect your relationships. By saying no when necessary, you are being honest about what you can and cannot do, and you are giving others the opportunity to respect your limits. This allows for more authentic, fulfilling connections where both parties understand each other's needs and boundaries. Saying no also requires you to be clear about your priorities. In a world where there are countless demands on our time and attention, it can be easy to lose sight of what truly matters. We might say yes to things because they seem urgent, because we don't want to let anyone down, or because we fear missing out. But when we take the time to reflect on our values and goals, we can make more intentional decisions about where to invest our time and energy. Saying no becomes easier when we are clear about our priorities and have a sense of direction in our lives. By saying no to things that don't align with our values or goals, we are saying yes to the things that truly matter. It is important to remember that saying no doesn't have to be a confrontation or an argument. It doesn't require an explanation or justification. You are entitled to say no without offering a long list of reasons, because your boundaries are valid, regardless of anyone else's opinion. A simple, clear, and respectful no is enough. You do not have to feel guilty for prioritizing yourself. In fact, when you practice saying no, you are teaching others how to respect your time, energy, and needs. Over time, people will come to understand that you are someone who values your own well-being and that you are not afraid to set boundaries. This, in turn, can create healthier, more balanced relationships. Saying no is also about taking ownership of your time and your choices. When we constantly say yes to others, we are essentially giving our time away. We are letting others dictate how we spend our days, often at the expense of our own desires and needs. But when we say no, we are asserting control over our time and our lives. We are deciding how we want to show up in the world and what we want to invest our energy in. This sense of autonomy and agency is essential for our overall well-being and sense of fulfillment. Boundaries are a powerful tool in fostering healthy, respectful relationships with others and with ourselves. They are not about creating distance or building walls between ourselves and the people we care about. Instead, boundaries are about clearly defining what is acceptable and what is not, both in how we treat others and how we allow others to treat us. Setting boundaries teaches others how to engage with us in a way that honors our personal needs, emotions, and space. It is an act of self-respect, and in doing so, it helps us create more balanced, harmonious, and sustainable relationships. Healthy boundaries are a sign of self-respect and an important part of cultivating mutual respect in relationships. When we set boundaries, we communicate our values, priorities, and limitations to others. Boundaries tell the people around us that we are worthy of being treated with consideration, kindness, and dignity. They help prevent us from being taken advantage of or from sacrificing our well-being for the sake of others. Boundaries are not about being rigid or inflexible. Rather, they are a way of protecting our time, energy, and emotions so that we can engage with others in a way that feels healthy and authentic. One of the primary reasons that boundaries are so important is that they help maintain balance in our relationships. Without boundaries, we risk becoming overwhelmed, overextended, and emotionally drained. We might find ourselves constantly saying yes to requests, taking on more than we can handle, or allowing others to push us beyond our limits. This can lead to burnout, resentment, and ultimately damage to the relationship itself. By setting clear boundaries, we are ensuring that we are not giving more than we are able to give, and we are not neglecting our own needs in the process. Healthy boundaries allow us to give to others in a way that is sustainable and fulfilling, without compromising our own well-being. At the heart of setting boundaries is the idea of protecting our energy. We all have a finite amount of time, energy, and emotional resources. When we fail to set boundaries, we may find ourselves stretched too thin, trying to please everyone, or dealing with toxic individuals or situations that drain us. By setting boundaries, we create space for the things that are most important to us, such as our health, our passions, our personal goals, and our relationships. Boundaries give us permission to say no to things that are not aligned with our values, allowing us to focus on what truly matters. Setting boundaries also allows us to preserve our sense of self. In relationships, it is easy to lose sight of who we are, particularly if we are constantly giving of ourselves to others. Without boundaries, we risk becoming too enmeshed in other people's needs, losing touch with our own desires and priorities. Boundaries help us to maintain our individuality and autonomy, ensuring that we can show up as our authentic selves in all areas of life. They give us the space we need to grow, to learn, and to explore our own interests and passions without feeling guilty or selfish. An essential aspect of boundaries is communication. It's not enough to simply have boundaries, we must also be able to express them clearly to others. This can be difficult, particularly if we are not accustomed to asserting our needs or if we fear disappointing others. However, clear communication is the key to ensuring that our boundaries are respected. We don't need to be harsh or confrontational when setting boundaries. We can do so with kindness and clarity. It is important to remember that setting boundaries is not about being rigid or controlling. It is about being honest about our needs and creating an environment where we can thrive. There are different types of boundaries, each serving a different purpose in our relationships. Physical boundaries relate to our personal space and physical comfort. For example, we may need to set a boundary around how close others can get to us, or how much physical affection we are comfortable with. Emotional boundaries relate to our feelings and emotional needs. This might involve setting limits around how much emotional labor we are willing to take on or how much we are willing to share with others. Time boundaries help us manage how we allocate our time and energy, ensuring that we are not overcommitted or overburdened. Setting time boundaries can involve saying no to certain obligations, making time for rest, or prioritizing activities that align with our values. Lastly, mental boundaries are related to our thoughts and beliefs, helping us protect our sense of self from external pressure or criticism. These boundaries help us maintain our confidence and stay grounded in our values, even in challenging situations.